quorum, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of you. I know, Bob, you've got to leave at noontime. We should be good with a quorum. I want to call to order the Town of Cohasset Sidewalk and Safety Committee meeting. Today is August 22nd, about 11, little after 11:30 now. I don't have an agenda with me, but I believe the first item of business was the approval of minutes of the August 15th meeting. I know Julie and I looked at those, circulated them. I don't know if anybody had any additional comments. If not, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of August 15th.
Second.
Having heard a motion in a second, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, abstentions? That vote carries 6-0. Let me just pull up the agenda here while I'm sorry for the lateness. I know Brian unfortunately couldn't join us today. The next item of business was an update from the DPW on the paving sidewalk schedule. I have not heard anything from Brian on that. As I understand that Elm, Margin, Atlantic, Smith, and Cushion areas will all be paved probably sometime around the Labor Day, maybe a little bit after that. So somewhere in that time frame. All right, the next item of business is the paving and sidewalk prioritization. So at last meeting, as you know, we talked a little bit in depth about breaking up the, talked about breaking up the town into different quadrants, and everybody had a chance to hopefully look at that. And if you haven't, then, please let us know. I thought probably the best thing to do is just to go around the room here or around the screens and just everybody give a quick little update on what they found. I'm happy to go first here and kick this off, and then Bob will set you up because I know you've got to leave in a little bit. And so, not looking for something too in depth. Frank had shared a Excel spreadsheet that I added to, and I saw Julie, you had added that to that as well. I don't know if you feel free to hold it up if you want, Julie, if you don't mind. I haven't touched that spreadsheet since you have the screen share going. I didn't add anything to that.
Bless you.
Can you see it right now? Oh, yes.
Yes.
Very good.
Right.
Okay.
So this was a spreadsheet. There's nothing. It was started by Ralph. Full disclosure, and Ralph's no longer on the committee. So this was extremely in depth. I didn't go as in depth on mine, maybe you know. So Ralph had kind of started the 23, 24, 25 kind of area. And again, I think that we would probably need to zero in on this, look back. So anyway, so what I did with, and Julie, will jump to you in a minute here. I just want to kick this off. So what I did in my particular area, I had North Cohasset, which was basically from North Main Street, down Forest Ave, down Jerusalem to the church, Windy Hill, Howe Road, and then down Jerusalem over to where Jerusalem comes up by Holly Hill. And might have got a little gray area with some overlap with, I believe, from Frank, so we can talk about that, but Linden Circle, etc. And, for the most part, the areas, so I'll break this up into paving, then I'll break it up into sidewalk. For the most part, the paving was actually in pretty decent shape. I looked at the paving plan that, I guess, Julie, do you have the paving plan there? If you don't, I can share my screen. So I try to look at what was actually.
You share it. It would take me a second to find it in my email.
No problem. So what I tried to do is look at the paving plan and kind of see where things fit in. See if any of my roads are actually on the paving plan, and let me know if you see my screen being shared here.
Not yet. There you go.
Okay. So what I tried to do again is look at and see if all my roads that I thought needed a little bit of paving were actually on there. And then hopefully this will come up in a minute. Can you see the spreadsheet now?
Yep.
Okay. So the roads that were in my area were these were 2028 Linden Circle, Linden Drive. And yeah, it probably seems like 5 years from now that would be, they would need a little bit of paving over. And then 2031 was Jerusalem down to Atlantic. So I didn't have any major issues with the actual paving of that. There were a couple areas that I thought probably could use a little paving. The beginning of, and I'll put this in a little bit more formal writing. I think the beginning of Linden Drive, Linden Circle going into Linden Drive, the first 100 yards needed to be done. Probably couldn't wait until 5 years from now. So that was really about it as far as paving goes. North Main Street was in my jurisdiction. If you've been to North Main Street where Forest Ave goes down to the train station, the half the road has a really nice stretch of pavement there now. Was paved about 2 weeks ago. There was a gas line installation. I think it was gas. It might have been water. Anyway, the gas or the water company had fully paid for that. So there's a nice stretch from Forest Ave down to North Main Street. So, there's probably some roads in there that probably need to be paved around 8 or 10 years from now. But I'm looking for like the next 5 years. And I think of when people kind of go around and talk about their section, like let's look at what's the 3 to 5 year plan. Are there any roads that aren't on that list that are in your quadrant or block that you feel should be bumped up to that 3 to 5 year plan? And maybe there are some roads that if they're not on the 6 to 10 year plan need to be bumped up to the 6 to 10 years. They can wait 5 years. So that was really it for as far as paving. As far as sidewalks go, there were really, right now, there's only two sidewalks, two roads that have sidewalks. One is Forest Ave. And all in all, it's actually it's in pretty good shape. There's areas of the road. If you drive, I know everyone's driven down, hopefully, assuming you've driven down Forest Ave, there's areas where there's actually curbing, like full curbing. And so there's that barrier. And then there's areas where we go back to like the Cape Cod berm where there's just the sidewalk kind of comes up to the road, or there's maybe a foot or two grass stretch that separates the sidewalk from the roadway. And in my view, I think that's fine. Obviously, it's less cost effective or more cost effective to do that than it is to put a full curb in there. The other area was North Main Street. North Main Street from Forest Ave goes all the way down to basically past the ball fields. And that road is, and all in all, the sidewalks aren't that bad. They could probably use a little, widening in some spots, but I don't think it's urgent that road, personally. There's an existing sidewalk that really needs complete an overhaul. What was nice about these two roads, if you've ever been down there, is kids actually use those sidewalks. Like North Main Street, and again, this is just in my section, but from Forest Ave to the ball fields and then a little further, you never see anybody walking on North Main Street or riding a bike. And of course, because it's a safety hazard, they'd probably get killed. But they're actually using the sidewalks. And the same thing with Forest Ave. You maybe see bikers, but they're using the sidewalks and it's in good shape. The only area that I'm going to propose in my area, in my section for a sidewalk, is two pieces on Jerusalem Road, where there's an actual, it starts right after the Greek church. There's a 50 or 75 yard stretch where there's no sidewalk. And then there's a stretch of sidewalk, a nice sidewalk that goes all the way down. And then the sidewalk just stops. So it's between the Greek church and Black Rock Beach. There's a strip that's probably halfway in the middle, but there's no inlet or outlet. So you've got to go back onto the road. So that's what I had in my section. And that's the only thing that is the big red flag that I saw in my area was, and I know the residents in the area have been talking about that for years, about putting in a sidewalk, and there's space to do it. It's not going to take any heavy lifting, no taking of land. So, that's my piece. And I'm happy to talk at the end about how we kind of make this a little bit more formal. But that was my piece. I know everyone's low on time here somewhat. So any questions? And then I'll just throw it to Bob because I know he's going to jump in a little bit. Okay. All right, Bob, you want to just give us a little overview of what you found in your area?
Yeah, Jay, I will. But before we move on from your area, I just want to, maybe talk or just advocate for North Main Street all the way to the town line. So I think there's a couple of reasons to do this, or to put it on the plan anyway. Connecting the train station to town via sidewalks, and the spur rail trail would also be connected via sidewalk if we could get this last stretch of Main Street connected. So I think that's just two landmarks in town. A good sidewalk system seems like it would connect public transportation to other sidewalks. So I think that's all worth considering.
Okay. Yeah, no, and fair point. I have heard that before. Again, this is me speaking here. I've never seen anybody walking down that road ever. Like I don't see, yeah, again, me personally, and it would be great. It's great to say we connect to the train station. Again, I'm only one voice. I don't know anyone in Cohasset that walks to the train station on that back road from North Main Street. Maybe you do, Bob. I don't want to.
That part of Main Street, though.
What's that?
I
Could be
do.
suicide walking that part of
And-
Main Street. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it's just narrow and
So-
windy, and it'd be tough to walk there. I would think that's part of the reason why.
Well, but there are people who do it, to be honest. I do it. I have a very short walk on that stretch, but I see people walking the full stretch. I almost hit somebody last week walking down that way. So, I mean, it's done. And I think if there was some infrastructure there, it would be done more. But, I mean, like, full disclosure, it's like a rugged stretch of road. It's complicated, right? There's easier things to do.
Yeah.
But I think it should be included in some kind of plan.
Okay. No, fair statement. And let's kick that around a little, and we can kick it around now, or we can, table that for further discussion. I think one of the things is, I did obviously drive down the road. I looked and I said, physically, like, where do you put it? Do you put it on this side? Do you put it on this side? Are there conservation issues? What's the cost factor involved there? There's a lot of things there. So, I mean, again, happy to move it forward. I don't know if gonna like the best thing for the buck there, but open for discussion.
Maybe what we could do is add it to the list, include it in the list, and then at some point when we are whittling things down for our proposal, we talk about it then in contrast with the other things that we're recommending.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Fair enough. Frank, you had your hand raised there.
Yeah, just one more comment. I think obviously that stretch of road would be really, as it is, it'd be really tough to add a sidewalk to because it's steep on both sides and really narrow. But I think if we're adding to the list, it'd be a good candidate to ask maybe the MBTA or something like that, the state for funding for it because they'd like the connectivity to the town, right? Kind of leverage higher funding than just the town itself. And one thought I had looking at it was kind of a crazy thought, and I don't know if the MBTA would ever go for it, but if they just extended the platform to King Street, then you could get on the train and King Street and walk up the platform to get to the station. It's like, if it's a pretty long extension, it'd be like 600 or 800 feet or something like that. But then they wouldn't have to deal with the sidewalk and all that stuff. They've already got a right of way for the train. Just instead of the platform ending in the middle of nowhere, extend it down to King Street, and then it could connect to the North Main Street, King Street sidewalk and all of that. A thought, but getting into the weeds more than we probably need to now. But I think any point is just that state or MBTA funding, I think would be prime for that.
Yeah. No, you raise a good point, Frank. And like some of these other projects, I think this would be a one-stop grant that we had submitted last year. We can do that all over again next year. And now knowing what I know now, we run to the gun, try to rush these projects forward in 2 weeks' time with not enough time to prepare. There's months to prepare and actually talk to the grant reviewers and massage the language to make it fit for something that they're actually looking for. And I think connecting that to the train station, in my view, is a no-brainer as far as like, I don't know how anybody wouldn't give us a grant to do that. So that would be definitely a candidate for a grant.
Great.
Okay. All right, Bob, I know you're short on time. Yeah.
Yeah. And the last thing on the train station. So in one of the early documents this group circulated, there was talk of a state funding a sidewalk on 3A from King to the train station. And, that, like, if they're going to do that, that might be out of scope for this group. But I think one of the reasons this group was kind of pulled together was to make the sidewalks a little more important for the town. Not sure anyone, wants to walk on 3A.
No,
Yeah.
I agree with you. It's so important, but I think because it's a state road that it's outside of our scope of work, but I could be incorrect.
No, I'm sure if they want to spend the money, we can't tell them no, but we could. I think if Brian was here, we could talk about some other options, but
Yeah.
when we do the whittling down, hopefully Brian's here and we can talk about state grants and all that stuff.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah. No, good points.
So I'll move to my segment, which I guess would be South Cohasset, basically just South Main and Beechwood. I didn't do a lot of look at the paving. South Main, I think, is up on one of these early years to get done. It could use it. The sidewalk on South Main is existing, but it's in really, really rough shape, like almost crash your bike rough shape. So I would definitely get that prioritized. And then Beechwood, I think the sidewalk only gets like halfway down Beechwood. I think it makes sense to connect it to 3A, get all those streets off Beechwood connected to the sidewalk so they can go down Beechwood down to South Main. And then as far as the side streets, like none of those need sidewalks. They're all quiet streets.
Okay. And again, the Beechwood area we're talking about is Beechwood from 3A inland, towards the ocean side.
Yeah, that's the one I looked at. I think
Yep.
someone else, Tori and Julie, had the other half.
Correct. Yeah, I believe so. Okay. All right. Thanks, Bob. So if you could kind of formally either include that, I think it may be good to just circulate that spreadsheet that we've already kind of started, and then have everybody created their own separate tab. Julia's shaking your head there. You created a nice separate tab. Maybe if everybody created their own separate tab to that document, that would be great. Yeah, see in the bottom there, you created your separate tab.
Yeah, I did that. I was thinking we could each just do our own and then we could put it into one larger
Yeah.
spreadsheet when it comes time. But I'm happy to send this around to the larger group.
All right. Well, while you have that up there, why don't we kick it over to that portion of town, and Julie and Tori, would you mind just kind of giving us a little update on what you found with your little reconnaissance efforts?
Yes. So looking at roadways and sidewalks, there were a number of roadways that I would recommend be paved. So I listed them here: Pond Street. And I'm sorry, I didn't compare this to the paving plan to see where these roads fell. I haven't made it that far yet, but we can do that as a next step. But we've already talked about Pond Street, but that definitely requires paving. Oh, and I was going to say what our area is, but I think you guys all know what our area is.
Yeah, so just I don't want to go back and forth with the screen share, but the Pond Street, and maybe this is a correction that needs to be done on the draft DPW plan, but it's for 2024. It says Pond Street extension from King Street to the dead end. It's 420 feet, which is only a little over a football field.
Yeah, so that's just to the water. That's only the driveway to the water treatment plant. That's the Pond Street
Okay.
extension. So I don't know
Okay.
why they're talking about paving that. My kids ride up and down it with their bikes all the time. It's in fine condition. So it's either a typo or they really do want to just pave that driveway to the water treatment plant.
Okay.
I did not include that on my list. I only included from King Street to 3A.
Okay.
Because I think the road is in good condition, or that driveway is in good condition to the water treatment plant. Paving on King Street itself is in, I would say, good condition. There are a number that I would recommend paving. We've all talked about Beechwood. It's already on the list. Riverview Drive was pretty bumpy. Church Street, pretty bumpy. Doan Street, not in great shape. Ox Pasture, it's fine in most places, but there is an area where the roadway is falling away on the left side of the street. It's pretty dangerous there if you get too close to that edge. Lily Pond Lane, I'm not sure if that's a town road or not, or if it's a private way, but if it's a town road, I would definitely recommend that gets paved. And same with Schofield Drive. That road's in pretty bad shape. And then in terms of sidewalk,
I just wanted to, but you raise a good point. And I had the same question that says I wanted to raise to Brian, is that we get into this gray area of private roads versus
Right.
public roads in town.
right,
As I understand, like like, I don't know the number, but some crazy number, like 30% of the roads in town are actually not public roads, they're private roads, which is a crazy number. And if I told you some of the roads, you'd think, what do you mean that's not a public road? So I
right,
don't know how that all factors in, but it's a great question, how that all factors into, I mean, I would think all roads should be, they, it's a road, you live on the road, unless it's a dead end road with your personal driveway on it, seems to be like it's a public road.
yes, like
So
if
it's a good question.
police and ambulance, fire need to access that road, you'd think they need it in
Yeah.
good shape. My understanding is that if it's a private way, the citizens on that street have to raise the money themselves privately to have the road paved. I have
Yeah.
friends on Old Pasture, who are going through that process right now. So that's why I mentioned, I'm not sure if any of these are private, but if they're not, then I think we should recommend paving. And in terms of sidewalk, yes for Pond in that stretch that I mentioned before, yes for King Street. Beechwood Street, there is one of those Cape Cod type sidewalks for most of the length of it. It does disappear in front of 303 Beechwood, so I think some new construction, I guess if that's what you call it, would be helpful there. On Doan Street, it is a pretty busy road that people take to get to Wampatuck, and a lot of kids live on that street. I know the bus goes all the way down that street though, so I don't really know if they need a sidewalk. If the residents on that street, and I'd be curious about this, are interested in a sidewalk, then I think we should talk about it. And I do know someone on that road. I could ask her what she thinks and if her neighbors have ever talked about a sidewalk, but I wouldn't recommend it unless it's something that the neighborhood is interested in doing. And Tori is very familiar with this area too. So Tori, do you have any other suggestions or recommendations to add?
No, I think you nailed it. With this detail, I love this spreadsheet. I think it is clear on what the recommendations are.
And I just sent around to the group the paving plan that, again, this is what the DPW and the town put together probably, at least going back a year or two ago, because it starts in 2022, but it just gives you an idea of the draft plan on years to come on roadways that in a perfect world would be paved. So again, after sending that out, you take a look at it and see if the road's not on there, when I was trying to do a cross reference as you were talking, Julie, a couple of them weren't. So this is the whole intent of this committee. Let's raise them and get them elevated so that they are on that 3-year plan, etc.
Mhm.
And if some are already forecasted to be, paved in a year or two, then great. Let's not take the gas off the pedal. Let's keep that going and make sure that they do get paved. All right. Why don't we jump to Paul? If you, Paul, you ready to kind of give us any questions on that? Sorry, any questions on that area? And thank you for the in-depth spreadsheet, Julia. We'll pass that around so the group can kind of do the same thing. And again, I don't know if we need roads that, even though, because I know, Paul, you got probably a laundry list of roads over there. If it's not recommended to be paved, I don't know if we need to go into the detail of actually putting, not recommended there. Maybe it can just kind of fall off. So don't feel like everyone's got to list every single road. But great job, Tori and Julie. Thank you. Paul, you want to give us a quick update? If you had a
Sure,
chance
I've
to.
done a little more than a cursory look. I've done my drive-by. I've not put pen to paper yet, and I will. I've really got on my end of the block, my priorities, if I had to put to the top of the map, would be Norfolk and Pleasant. Pleasant from Ripley all the way up to the top. And this is going to sound terrible since I've lived there for years. I always forget the name of the road at the top. Frank, maybe you could help me out on that.
Is it Old Pasture or Reservoir?
Yes.
It's
Yeah.
Reservoir, right?
Old
Yeah, it depends on which way you go.
Reservoir.
Yeah.
But
The old
I
left is
just
Reservoir.
think, you know, as a matter of fact, Frank, I think I saw you the other day when I was leaving Cushing. You're
Yep.
walking with your wife and baby.
The whole gang.
And I just think that those roads are used all the time. Norfolk Road in particular and Pleasant, both going to the schools,
Lots of kids.
both going up the hill. You know, there's bus stops there. I mean, Cushing Road, sidewalks existing, could it use some attention? Yes, I understand the back part of Cushing Road, they're gonna be doing that when they pave. They're all, what do you call them, Jay? The grass strip in front of them. I mean,
Like a,
Cushing's,
like a Cape Cod berm. It's
Yeah,
kind of like
Cushing-
when the curb meets the pavement, and then just like a little 2-inch little pavement thing. So like the road could go into the sidewalk. I guess we're calling that like a Cape Cod berm sidewalk.
okay. So Cushing really to Pond's not in bad shape. At the pond, you have to cross over, which is I mean, it might behoove us to paint a crosswalk there, just so people, because there's a bend in the road coming down, right across from the duck pond or the skating pond. And I could see a crosswalk going there and another crosswalk going across from Pond, across Pond Street. Because the sidewalk breaks, you cross over, then you have to cross over again to get down towards the church. But I'm going to write this down. I just haven't had time, and I apologize to the group. But the ones I think that are in real need of attention are Norfolk and Pleasant. Pleasant from Ripley all the way up to Old Pasture Reservoir, and Norfolk Road going up, because those are the roads the kids take to the schools and the fields. I don't know on Reservoir and Old Pasture if we could do a sidewalk. It may mean a taking. I'm not sure of that, because I don't think there's one that even exists. They're all front lawns. So I don't think we want to bump into the Elm Street issue. Some people may want some. We might want to do a survey at some point in time. But the ones we have existing sidewalks, those two I think are the key in my demographic right now.
Okay. So, Paul, if you could, when you have a moment, if you could kind of put that pen to paper,
I will.
so that we could have that on record. And if you could fill in that spreadsheet, that would be great. And if not, just kind of send, if you could fill in that spreadsheet with that.
I will.
that'd be awesome.
If I can access the spreadsheet, I'd be happy to fill it in.
Thank you. And I know Julie sent it as well. Carol, you sent it, and I just sent it around. So there's a spreadsheet going around. Thank you, Carol. About looks like we have the public road versus private roads in the Excel spreadsheet, which I haven't had a chance to open it and look at it, but I already know in advance that you look at those roads and start scratching your head, and some of those roads would be alarming that you think is a private road and not a public roadway, just in advance. But so take a look at that, and then we'll get some more clarification on how this all fits into paving and sidewalks when we speak to Brian in later time. So thank you, Carol.
Carol, this is so interesting. And just a note on my comment earlier, Lily Pond Lane is listed on neither sheet, neither an accepted road or a private road.
I'll check with Brian when he gets back.
Okay, that's when I really don't know what it is. Thank you.
All right, I have a hard stop in about 15 to 20 minutes. So any questions on Paul's area? All right, great. Thanks, Paul. Frank, go ahead, Frank, and I'll make my comment later.
Okay, I'll make mine quick, just hit the highlights. I needed to do a little bit more driving, but I've got the list together. Places that I think need attention. There's one section of Highland Ave, so just around the common. The sidewalks don't continue all the way around, so there's a little section of Highland where it bends down towards South Main Street. It's got green on either side. Technically, it's cutting through the green, though it doesn't really feel like it. There's no sidewalk there, no crosswalk at the end. It's a weird spot. If you're trying to walk a lap around the common, you can't because that's missing a sidewalk and a crosswalk. Like that'd be a good one. And it's a short section too. And I don't think right away would be an issue on either side because it's, like I said, it is cutting through the common, though it doesn't look like it. South Main Street, the section that was mine, so sorry, go back. I have like the center of town and then northeast of there. So up, not Jerusalem Road, but right next to it, and then Beach, Nichols and Beach, Elm to Margin and all around there. So other right in town, South Main Street is pretty good, but there's just one section on the south side in front of one house that doesn't have a sidewalk. I would imagine that was for a good reason at one point in time, but it's just house 143 doesn't have a sidewalk in front of it. I would think if they're paying any attention to South Main Street when they're repaving that, it would be wise to add a sidewalk there. Looks like there's room. Their fence is probably 8 feet back from the road, so I don't know why there isn't a sidewalk there. Elm Street, don't need to talk about that. Obviously, that needs attention. Margin Street, I think that's being repaved, if I'm not mistaken. There is a section just north end of Stockbridge to Howard Gleason that doesn't have a sidewalk. The rest of it does, and it's in okay shape, but it'd be nice to extend the sidewalk that last, just one more house to connect the sidewalk to the new stop sign across from Howard Gleason so that you could get to Howard Gleason safely. Howard Gleason is next on my list. I think it'd be nice to put a sidewalk there, but it's a dead end street that doesn't get a lot of traffic, so it would not be the end of the world. I feel like as long as if you could safely get to the street via a new sidewalk, that last house on Margin Street before that, then you'd be fine walking on Howard Gleason without a sidewalk. And then, wish list stuff. Atlantic Ave doesn't have a sidewalk. I don't think would be a super high priority, but if we're trying to eventually connect Elm, the Margin to Sandy Beach or via Beach Street, either way, either Atlantic or Beach would need sidewalks. But that long stretches with, I'm sure, lots of right-of-way issues. So that would be probably the lowest priority on my list, but those are the highlights.
Okay, no, great. Any questions on Frank's area? Okay, one thing I wanted to bring up, and you talked about like Atlantic, and there are kind of 3 key roads in this town that I feel, and there's probably others, but 3 areas where that being Atlantic Ave, King Street, and Jerusalem Road, whereby we realize that some parts will never have a sidewalk for whatever reason, but this is where I believe I would like to propose the Sharrows. It's the signage of the, basically what we call the Sharrows. It's not, you could create a bike lane, but just like a bike signal on the road or walking on the road, just to at the very minimal. Again, if a sidewalk is never going to go in or not going to go in for 3, 4, 5 years from now, or being proposed forever, to put that on the actual roadway. And it's not like it's a dedicated, and I use bikes, not like it's a dedicated bike lane because the road's not wide enough to do that, but at least give the driver a feel of looking down and seeing that there's actually these, these 4 foot by 4 foot signs on into the pavement, that there's bikers there every 100 yards or whatever it is. And you see, in the only part of that town that I know of that I see them is around Kingham Bridge. And I know that they had to put them in there for the state funding, and when they built that bridge, or federal funding, whenever they got it, there had to be some signs of that, because there's nowhere else in town. The minute you come to Cunningham Bridge, where the pavement starts, you see it on the road, and you see it again, and then you see it where the pavement stops. So, that was identified in the TEC, the town's consultant report, sidewalk report as well. The dollar figure was astronomical, like $100,000 to do King Street and $100,000 to do Jerusalem Road. I thought that was absolutely insane. I'd go out there, on a Saturday afternoon for $10,000 with a spray gun and do it myself if the town wants to write me a check for that. But I'd like to throw that out there and put that in the list as well. I think that's kind of low hanging fruit. when the town goes out to do the stripes, etc., that we should throw that in there. I can't imagine it's a big heavy lift.
Jay, I think it's a great idea.
I agree with that. We're doing them on Elm Street, going up to from up
Yeah.
to Atlantic.
Well,
So
on Elm Street, we can talk about Elm Street at the next meeting, but I would like to actually have a formal, I believe that there's plenty of space to have a formal bike path on Elm Street. And especially around the Cove area in front of the condos, we were going to have a dedicated bike pathway along Elm Street. But in other areas, we just don't have the space to do that.
Jay, I mean, I'm all for bike paths. I would love to see bike paths on every road. And we can talk about it when Elm Street comes up, but like, does it make sense to spend money on Elm Street if, you know, it's only a small section of a ride? Like, you still got to go through the village and deal with that.
Well, Elm Street is getting paved right now. Well, a little after
Oh,
Labor Day.
I meant like future state as the bike rider. Like, you kind of navigate the village and all the diagonal parking, and you're safe on Elm Street. But then right after that, you're on Border and it's tight again.
Yeah. Well, I think
Um,
it's just
but hey-
it's just areas of town to think about with this group. That's really what we're all about here: safety, and so that's the sidewalk and safety and connectivity. So, if, in my view, if we can put some of those what we call sharrows on in the roadway itself to make the roadway, hopefully, an attempt to make it safer for people walking and riding, then let's do it.
Yeah, and I think there's some spots in my zone where those would come in really helpful. So I'm looking at the spreadsheet here. I don't know if you guys, I lost my video, but like recommended sidewalk, maybe we should like not recommended, but like sharrows, put sharrows in the comment section there. Column E.
That's a good idea. Add it to the spreadsheet.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good idea, Bob.
If column E is the best place, I'll put
Yeah.
it in there.
Good idea.
Should we be adding a column potentially around the idea of a multi-purpose path or bike path or something as well?
Should we? I'm sorry. Add a what? I'm sorry.
Like, should there be a column where, like, if not a sidewalk, we'd recommend a multi-use or a bike path?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. Yeah.
I think it might be helpful if the spreadsheet that I just sent around, if someone could put that into a Google Doc or put it on a, you know, a Google accessible place, then we could all update it in real time, just add our own tabs. Is someone?
Really, I can do that right now while we're
Thank you.
talking.
Thank you.
Okay.
And then folks can update it whenever they feel like it, and all happen in real time. We don't have to send around a draft. Thank you, Tori.
All right. Thank you, Tori. So yeah, if you could send that around, do you have I'm going to send you the latest, or Julie, would you mind sending Tori the latest of the
I
Excel
sent it to the whole
spreadsheet?
group. I did it already.
Oh, awesome. Thank you. I'm trying to multitask here, getting ready for a class I have to teach in 12 minutes. All right. So I think we're in good shape there. If everybody for whatever our next meeting is, which we'll get to, can kind of firm that up a little bit, look at it, you know, again, not looking for major detail, but if there is a sidewalk, if you could get like the number of the house to the other number of the house, if you had a rough idea on distance in feet, that would be great. I'm sure Brian can figure that out, but we're just trying to, there's a cost factor of what, you know, whatever it is, $1,000 a foot, etc. So just trying to figure out what the cost would be associated. And as we kind of talk about this discussion of the report to the select board, I think having the Excel spreadsheet in place is good. And I know I'm going to be kind of out of touch here for the next couple weeks as we wind down and get ready for going back to school. I don't know what your schedule looks like for the next week and a half. If you have any last minute vacations or plans to be out of town. If we stick to Tuesdays, if we went 2 weeks from today, that's the day after Labor Day. That seems to be maybe a pretty busy day for some. I don't know. How do people's calendars look 2 weeks from today?
I think that
That a
is
day
a
we-
good day for me. I come back from vacation that day.
Yeah.
So work-wise, it'll be tough. I am available if we have to, but it would be great to do another day if we could.
Yeah. How about
Yeah,
Thursday? How about Thursday of that week? What's that?
If
I'll
we
be
can
out
do
of
it
town
about,
that Thursday,
Jay, I can
Jay.
do the Thursday if we do it at about this time, because I'm in court on Thursday mornings. If we did
Okay.
it around 11:30.
Let me just.
Jay, I'm gonna be out that whole week.
I can do that day, Jay, Thursday, the 7th.
Okay. Why don't we shoot for Thursday the 7th at 11:30?
Is it just
works.
Bob who can't make it?
What's that?
Is it just Bob who can't make it? Bob can't
You're out
make
you're out the whole week, Bob?
Yeah, that week doesn't work for me, but if you guys have the quorum, obviously it's not a problem.
Yeah, let's try, because all of next week I'm away all of next week. And then we come back to school, and then obviously that Tuesday, Wednesday is probably a little crazy for most, and it sounds like others are gonna be away next week as well. So let's shoot for the 7th at 11:30. Carol, I'll send you an agenda. But if you could just put that on the docket now or get that ready for Thursday.
Yep, I will.
7th at 11:30. And then if the Excel spreadsheet is circulated around to everybody, then let's really try and spend the next 2 weeks and firm that up. If you still need to do a little bit more driving around, etc., by all means, let's try and firm that up. And then hopefully Brian will be available, and then we'll talk a little bit more about this report, which I don't envision is going to be, maybe I envision that the Excel spreadsheet will be the attachment to the report, so that, but we need to have probably some cost figures associated with that and a little bit of a plan. But the select board can refer back to the Excel spreadsheet. But again, look at the DPW roadway paving plan and do a cross-reference there. If your roadway that you're saying is in dire need to be repaired, and it's on, make note of that, but also just looking at the paving plan and see, oh yeah, well, it's actually on the paving plan for 2 years from now. So I feel a lot better about it. And then we will go from there. Any questions on any of that? Okay. All right, great. Any other last minute items? Anything reasonably not anticipated within 48 hours? Okay, all right. Motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
All right, second. All those in favor? Aye, aye, great. Have a great, enjoy the rest of the summer, everybody.
You
See you
too.
after the
Thank
kids
you.
are back to
Thanks, Jay.
school.
Enjoy the
Thank you.
summer, everybody.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.